the support. Now, these tacks are very, 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 very old, and as I go to pull them out, many of them just snap apart. The heads pop right off, and they leave the shaft stuck in the wood. That's if I can get them out. You see, here, I'm really struggling just to get one tack out. And unfortunately, even when I can get them out, they usually snap off. So I'm switching to a different tool. I'm going to just grab onto the shaft and see if I can pull them out. And you can see that, number one, these are really big tacks, and they're really, really rusty. That's probably just a result of the climate that this painting was stored in, or maybe the wood being a little bit too green when the painting was tacked to it. Eventually, I do get all of those tacks out, and boy was it some work. And then I can start lifting off this strainer support from the canvas. And it's a little stuck because some of the ground layer on the canvas has penetrated through and stuck to the support. This canvas doesn't look like it was ever sized, and that's a really important step that, if missed, can result in this situation. Now, removing this big patch is luckily easier than removing those tacks. The adhesive has failed, and there really wasn't enough adhesive on this patch to make it effective. This is kind of performative conservation, I suppose, where it looks like it's doing something, but really isn't. Now, the residue of the adhesive also needs to come off, and here I'll turn to a scalpel. This is a water-based adhesive, and I could employ water or Laponite to soften it and remove it, but it's so deteriorated that using a scalpel and kind of chipping it off dry is actually faster and cleaner. It doesn't allow any of this adhesive to reconstitute and penetrate into the canvas layer, which is something I don't want. So sometimes removing it dry is the best approach. Now, there's not a ton of adhesive on the back, but where it's on, it is pretty thick, so it takes a couple of passes and a little bit of effort to separate it from the canvas. Eventually, though, I will get all of this removed, and then we'll have the canvas free and clear of this attempted intervention. But feeling the canvas, I notice that there are a lot of bumps. There are slubs, which are just defects in the canvas weave, and areas of ground that have penetrated through the canvas and then pooled up on the back. And all of these need to be removed because they are texture that when we put the painting on the hot table will transfer through the painting to the face of the painting, and we will see all of these as bumps. So, more scalpel work. And what I'm trying to do is just glide over the surface and remove all of those bumps, not shave down the canvas at all. I want to preserve the weave. And then I can vacuum it up and clean it up and just make sure that I've picked up every little bit and gotten all the little bumps off. But inevitably, I miss some. And you can see, just right here, it doesn't look like a lot, but when I run the scalpel over it, you can see what's coming off. And those little bits of remaining ground layer will transfer to the front of the painting, and they'll become bumps that catch the light and become distracting. So I'll make another final pass, just making sure that I've gotten all of those off, and then when I'm done, I can take the painting to the back, to the small hot table, where we will do the first of several treatments. And this is going to be the vapor treatment, whereby employing moisture, heat, and pressure, we can soften the canvas fibers, the weave, and then we can flatten them using pressure, and then cool them and dry them in place, effectively ironing this painting without an iron. Now below the painting there's a piece of 100% cotton acid-free rag paper, then a nylon release layer to make sure any adhesive doesn't cause the canvas to stick to the blotter paper, and then some cotton webbing that will allow me to extract the air, some through bag connectors, and then a sheet of mylar on top. This all gets taped down to create an airtight seal, and then I pull out all of the air, creating downward pressure. The table is heated up, and I'll use a bone folder here to kind of encourage some of these high spots down flat. Once the table has cooled, I can turn off the vacuum pump and I can remove the mylar envelope and take the painting, which is now flat, over to the drywall tables where I will press it. This is critically important because there is moisture still suspended in this canvas. If we don't press it, as that moisture evaporates and escapes the canvas, it will cause the canvas to distort, and it will have negated all of the work that I've just done. A piece of felt helps conform to the surface of the painting and protect it, and then the drywall comes down and a cinder block on top. Once the painting has been allowed to acclimatize to the studio's relative humidity and all that ambient moisture has escaped, I can come back to the front and I can start dealing with these losses. Now, I certainly could photograph this or scan this, bring it into the computer, trace it, adjust it, trace it again, do some more adjusting, and then send it over to my laser cutter. And if this painting had dozens upon dozens of losses, or some really complicated ones, that would probably be the approach that I take, but sometimes the basic analog approach is faster and easier, particularly when it's only one or two little losses like this. And the first thing I'll do is trace those losses with a pencil. I just need to get the approximate shape of the void, and then I can take my scissors and cut it out. And it really only takes, 2-3 minutes total to do this work? By the time I even set the laser cutter up, I could be done with 3 or 4 of these. So just because we have the fancy tools doesn't mean they are the right tools for the job. And that's something that often takes a lot of experience to recognize. See? Fits nicely, huh? No laser cutter required. Once I've gotten all of those little inlays, I think there were 2 or 3 in place, I can then take the painting back to the spray room and I can apply the adhesive coating that will be necessary for the interleaf lining process. Because this painting has a really big nasty tear in it, in the center of it, and it goes kind of every which way, an interleaf lining is really the best approach to keep this painting stable and flat. But I'm adding a piece of flat spun nylon gossamer because the canvas weave is fairly thick and this painting is really thick. I want to make sure that there's a little bit more adhesive than I would otherwise be comfortable just simply rolling out. So using this nylon gossamer allows me to make sure the adhesive is a little bit thicker and to make sure that the smooth PET film has good purchase and good contact with the rough textured canvas. One other benefit to this is that it helps stabilize the canvas for handling. But there's a lot of leftover flat spun nylon gossamer, and so I'll trim that off using a scalpel blade. When this is pressed down into the lining, it mostly disappears, but getting rid of all of this excess material is not necessary, but it certainly looks nice, and if I can make it look nice, I say why not? So now comes the point where I assemble the interleaf lining sandwich, and I'll run my hand over every surface to make sure that they're smooth and free of bumps. I'll iron on the adhesive film to the new canvas, and the PET film, the interleaf, is tacked into place onto the original canvas, and then it's all put together and tacked into place and brought to the back, to the hot table, once again for the actual fusing process. The table is heated up, this time to a higher temperature than before. The same cotton webbing and the same through bag connectors, kind of the same setup, except this time there is a release layer on the face of the painting, just in case any adhesive squeezes through. We don't want to glue the painting to the mylar. And yes, I've done it many times. It's not the end of the world. We can certainly undo it, but if we can avoid making a careless error, kind of seems like low-hanging fruit. Again, with the heat up to temperature, the vacuum pressure applied, I can come back, this time with a bone folder, and work those high areas down. And then we let the painting cool. Once it's room temperature, I can turn off the vacuum pump, I can remove the painting from this little envelope, and I can take it to the front of the studio where it's time to start cleaning this painting. And I'm pretty excited to see what we have.